So, welcome everyone. Actually, quite a busy week. This is already our second LinkedIn Live event. I'm very excited to talk today about understanding the global AI landscape with Robert from CEPS. And as always, who am I? I'm Tristan, the CEO and founder of the AI Strategy Institute, and I'm a lecturer for AI at the Technical University of Munich, as well as a faculty member for AI at the Boston Consulting Group. And I'm super excited to have Robert here today from CEPS to talk with me about kind of like the global AI landscape, and especially talk about a project they have been doing at CEPS. But before we kind of like start and dive deep into this project that will help us to better understand the AI landscape, I want to give the word to Robert to kind of like introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, what you're doing, and maybe also what are you doing at CEPS and what is CEPS?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm Robert from the Netherlands. I'm a data scientist at CEPS. It stands for the Center for European Policy Studies, the oldest and largest think tank right now in Brussels, as we always say, to brag a bit. And what we do is data science for policy. So usually we write a lot of reports, we do social science, and we thought, hey, the global landscape in general is innovating, is changing. Data is becoming a core part, and let's try to really use a bit more of a quantitative approach. See, can we map data and get more policy insight, evidence-based policy, which is like at the core of CEP's motivation. So what we do is something it's called economics of complexity, where we really look at a place-based innovation, a lot of difficult words. But it means that we look at indicators, patents, investments, publications or, in academia to see where our technology is developing. And you can do some nice things with it, like either map the twin transition, digital, sustainability, but we focus a lot on AI. I myself have a background in quantitative economics and machine learning, and the AI field is rapidly growing. I think that's at least an understatement. So mapping which countries are developing AI, which cities even, what are the interesting startups, what are the big players doing, where are technologies going. And it led us to this tool, the AI World. It's from a big project called the European Ecosystem of Excellence, to see, can Europe be competitive? One of the big talking points in Brussels nowadays. And we have two main focuses. One is future of work. So how does work look in the world of AI? So will our jobs change? Which jobs are at risk? Which are actually more enabled by this technology? And then it's the development part, which I work mostly on. So who is doing what and what can we learn? Is there inequalities? Things like that.
Okay, super interesting. So before we talk a little bit more about kind of like the tool, kind of like this AI world tool that you have been talking about, I want to kind of like take a step back and understand, okay, well, what happens? So like, why do you do this? What happens with the things that you're doing? So is this used then to inform policy decisions or kind of like to work with journalists to have a better overview? Why are you doing this?
Good question. For first, it's literacy. So the idea that if we map different data sources into one platform where you can basically tackle the problem of AI from different approaches, you get a better picture of what is actually going on, what is the state, what are the risks. And we see that there's a lot of differences in people's like how they perceive this. So when you go to an average room and ask a raise of hands, who knows what AI agents are? Usually a lot of hands stay low because people think they don't know it. Then when you dig deeper, actually a few of them really understand, oh, we were already connecting computers, APIs, basically language models can take more actions than they used to. But so there's clear gaps there, and that is just one example. You can go back to the core of the technologies, reinforcement learning, neural networks, but even more applied as what are the rules of the AI Act, for instance, where there's a lot of confusion around people. So literacy is one, and two for CEPS as a think tank. By looking at the data, distilling insights, that is for us indeed to inform policymaking.
Okay, very, very interesting. So so then kind of like this AI world project that you have been talking about is, can you kind of like tell us what is it about? Kind of like maybe tell us like how long have you been working on, who are project partners of this, and what is the outcome, or what is the goal?
Yes. 1st of Jan was the official start. And we've had a growing team of members at CEPS. I can show it later. Like the team, we're designed it, leading it, implement it, funded by Google Foundation. And we have some partners in data. We're using, for instance, labor data from Lightcast, which is providing very high quality data on vacancies and the type of skills that are requested there. We're also in discussion with other data providers. Investment data is from Crunchbase, so that is for venture capital. So then we look which startups receive funding. Publications are from OpenAlex. It used to be, I think, the Microsoft, what is it, academic graph, where basically all public publications are stored. And then for patents, for now we use RecPat. And it's quite a job to kind of connect these data sets, because you need to find a single source of truth. Like if your patents talk about Germany, but then your investments about Munich and Berlin, you need to make the connection. Yeah, okay, Berlin, Munich is easy, but it can get much more complicated. But this has started in January. For the past months, it was really building backend, front end. So backend is what does the data say, what do we want to show, and then front end is, okay, which graph do we use, which text do we connect to give people as easily as possible good insight. It's definitely an MVP, so not perfect, but better ship early than late, right?
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, so what the AI world is kind of like a project where you connect to different databases to make kind of like, or to visualize or give insights in what is, for instance, the latest state of development when it comes to, for instance, publications in the field of AI. Where can we find AI hubs in Europe? How prolific are they in publishing what they are doing? So will this kind of like help me then kind of like have a very good overview where we're standing, what is happening, and also find different players?
That's absolutely the goal. If not, then you need to tell me. But it's true. Like we show both absolute numbers. This is the amount of publications you see, but also who is doing it. And then you can, of course, make that connection. One thing we try to show is connections or the lack of. But one narrative definitely is, for instance, in the US, you see a lot of New York, San Francisco collaborations, whereas Munich and Paris are both classified as hubs and talking much less to each other. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I think then it makes sense. I mean, we talked already about it. I think it makes much more sense maybe to have also a look in a tool, and then you can explain a little bit. And I think that helps us better, kind of like the viewer here, to visualize what actually the project is about. Because I mean, we already have talked in advance, and I thought it was super cool. I mean, I see all the time kind of like these people on LinkedIn posting the latest statistics. And now we have a tool that can kind of like help journalists, help these influencers, so to say, but also kind of like policymakers to understand where it is, and not only kind of like talk about it, but have also a data-driven guidance. So Robert, why don't you show the tool and kind of like give us a grand tour through what you have been building over the last couple of months?
Thank you. Yeah, let's do it. Absolutely. Let me share my screen. Here we go. And I'll try to be quick before we spend half an hour here, but you guide me.
You can leave your time. I mean, I think that's super interesting. So yeah.
Awesome. So good to mention, we definitely include data outside of Europe. So whereas a lot of what we do focuses on EU and Europe, because of our situation in Brussels and the connection to the EU, you need to understand how does the EU work globally, and the globe is much more interesting than the EU alone. And this is a representation of it's a very geographical mindset, how many patents are where, and you see a bit the big ones, Beijing, Tokyo, Seoul, but there's much more. So we map in which places, and I'll go to an example of a country, for instance. We look at sectors. This is definitely still under development, but the goal is to show, in clean energy, this is happening. In finance, that is happening. In education, we have this. You also see that in the case studies back. Then we have technologies, concepts, which are really to explain what is AI. We have the companies that make it, the people, and of course models that get turned into products. And I'll show this in a clearer place later. Then the goal is to basically have documents about this. If we open one, let's say tokenization, we try to visualize, okay, what is tokenization? This is use of Napkin AI, an interesting tool. And the text was definitely not just created by Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, but really tailored to really explain it. So we really want to educate here. We don't want to be another Wikipedia, because it already exists and it already serves its purpose. But if we can really tell you how tokenization works, why it matters, and maybe why, I saw a paper the other day that there's a new thing Meta published, different than tokenization, how it might change. So it's super important that we keep this up to date, because once it's outdated and not interesting, then it loses its purpose. And here you see in one overview the data sets I've been talking about. AI jobs is just EU for now. We don't have the world data yet, but there's already patterns you start to see, like United States is very big. These are absolute numbers. Publications, this is venture capital investments on Crunchbase. You can also look per million people. Then you see different other things that
and one question. So is this kind of like, is the data coming in? So if I look at this, is this a snapshot from last week or last year, or is this kind of like connected with the databases? So it kind of like gets the data and we have always more or less real-time data and we can see, okay, well, where are we standing?
Almost. The goal is have investments weekly. Patterns, I think there's a bit more delay in their research as well. But ideally, at some point, it's going to be real time, and it's also difficult. Like real time data is much more expensive, much more sought after. It's easier to take the snapshots we have now, but in the end, we want to be up to date, because we also see things very much changing quickly.
Yeah. It's very interesting already, kind of like to see some of the things here. If you kind of like, if you scale it down, or if you put them in perspective per 1 million people, obviously, like if we're talking about AI patterns and AI investments, we all know that the United States and China are on top, but already kind of like here, I think that's very interesting. So to see kind of like how good, for instance, I mean, when it comes to AI research, I wonder why Macau is so high up there, or Singapore. I mean, and this is a nice thing, right? Because you have heard so much about Singapore in kind of the field of AI, and they're very kind of like on the front when it comes, even though they're so tiny, they're very much on the front when it comes to pushing AI. I remember, I think it was this year or last year, they had kind of like this big announcement when it comes to AI strategy. And also kind of like, I really like the approach that they're giving out vouchers to their more senior citizens to get AI literacy. And I think it's very interesting, because now it's kind of like, you can maybe a little bit kind of like read into this and see kind of like that Singapore is ranking so high, given that it's so small, if you put it in perspective with other things.
Absolutely. One other example are the universities. You have the National University of Nanyang Technological University. We made a tree map of like the spotlight and the oral talks at NeurIPS, and they stand out, at least in Asia, and compared to the Chinese US wave of publications, that these two countries, even in like the top papers, they even come out. So I think that's a good thing. Yeah, it's the same you see to Switzerland, Norway, maybe not too surprising, Ireland in terms of jobs, that they have quite some AI jobs. And here we really looked at the skills for vacancy. And if one vacancy is marked AI, for now we mark it as an AI job. So methodology is here important. But I expect much more on this. We're going to publish like which jobs are more at risk, which we know from certain academic publications. And yeah, this is the ranking. The idea is that we get it updated, well, every month, and then you have the AI World 2024 ranking, etc. Let's see if people are interested.
Oh, nice. And what it seems like, I see there's a time scaler. So I could also like, so imagine I, as a journalist, I could see kind of like, let's say, I mean, I'm from Germany. I want to understand how kind of like the German AI job market has evolved. And this would give me more or less the possibility to kind of like look back, okay, how was this 2020 or 2021 before ChatGPT came out, or at the beginning when ChatGPT came out, and how did it change now that ChatGPT is there? So this would kind of like allow me kind of like to write these stories about artificial intelligence, right?
Absolutely, and you'll see more graphs. Time scales always wherever possible. It really helps that you can modify it the way you want. Absolutely, absolutely. And if we go back, it's interesting. Let's see. You've seen investments here. It's way back in 16. China is much bigger than United States here in what we recorded on Crunchbase. It's bigger than United States completely takes over in 2018. I think these are the years after the ImageNet and the pre-Gen AI. And then the gap, you just see it here in absolute numbers, is only rising, and especially here at the brink of ChatGPT.
I mean, this is so cool. I mean, like before, when I needed to write something, so I have a blog, and I kind of like write from time to time. I write articles about the world of AI. Like, it would take me a long time, and now it seems like I have a lot of these things in one place. So what else do you visualize with this AI world?
Here we have the skills also per year, and then classified in very general ML, artificial intelligence, NLP. And then we really want to make this more granular where we can, but it's already that you see, okay, what are the AI skills employers are asking for in the EU for this? It's a lot of machine learning. Apache is still there, PyTorch. In another paper, we see, for instance, that the demand for Python has risen much more than R. That's one thing we see coming back. And to be very honest, like over the years, here you still see Weka, for instance, Amazon Alexa. You see it changing a bit. Chatbot starts to arise. Deep learning is always there. But there is much, much more. This is the top AI players for which we have it: patents, research, investments.
Wow! So you can even kind of like see kind of like what are the top companies, and not only the top countries, but where investment has been going to. It's crazy to see that 16% have been kind of like going to OpenAI. Wow.
Exactly. And when Anthropic's the 4 billion investment Amazon just did, once you add it, we haven't done that yet. It only increases. You really have to click on the subcontinent to still make sense of the other ones. Here it's interesting that still, like, the UK is a big part, Wave, for instance, and again, here classification really matters. What are AI companies? This is something I think the line is very blurring, that very old-fashioned software companies, they start to have some AI, they call themselves AI companies. When you're just an OpenAI wrapper, to what extent are you an AI company? That is something you can ask. But there are some interesting things. Helsing, H company.
Yeah, Helsing was last year. They came to my lecture. I feel like this is almost, maybe now the nerdy side in me comes out. I feel like it's almost like a Christmas present to kind of like have this very nice overview, because it's like I'm always looking like for cool people to interview, or kind of like what is happening. And now I have it all kind of like on one side, where I normally had kind of like we're looking through news feeds and so on, and kind of like it's nice to see this kind of like number driven approach to it. And yeah.
Exactly, and we can go way back before there was OpenAI, and then see gradual. I think the red part, you see it becoming a bit bigger every time, especially here. And then there's so much to explore. Like every time I make something like this, or I analyze it for a project, once you go deep dive, like this line, okay, Berkshire Grey, but for the rest, I would have to Google what is it. And it's amazing that there are so many startups. It's not only San Francisco, but even even in the other parts. There are big Asian companies I've never heard of. They do interesting things. So never stop exploring, I think, is one of the things that definitely holds here. You can also, once you go to research or patents, you get a very different picture. Like then it's a bit more the core technology, like investments is the uptake. So what is actually developed into things. Let's see, here we have patents. Let's take Europe just to have a bit better overview. You see the research centers popping up, Oxford, Imperial, UCL, Technical Munich, Aachen, LMU. Quite some.
That's so interesting to see for kind of like the first time like this, visualized like this, and you get a real feeling. So what more is there?
Yeah, much more. Let's
Much
see. This
more.
is
Okay. It's the
we
gift that
can
keeps giving.
exactly. Let me zoom out. Like this is how our industry is actually approaching AI. So we made this for a presentation where you see, okay, we take the top use cases. So for transportation, of course, autonomous vehicles, route optimization, healthcare. You have the monitoring of patients, drug discovery, and I think people know the usual suspects that you get named in the media, but it's much harder to dig deeper and actually come up with these things. And this is just a few examples, but if we go deeper into seeing per industry, this is what they're really doing, the use cases, then you explore many more things that people are definitely not aware about. Like this is the ones we know, like the credit scoring, but there's much more. And what I said before, it basically boils down to this. So we try to explain the world of AI. You have a technology, it's developed into a model. A model is the input for a product made by a company. It solves a problem in an application. There's a concept that you use in this application, and then who is doing it. That is a bit, and we hope that for every part of this, we can really explain this is what's going on. Staying up to date is news. So for now, we always show every week the 5 things, what is happening. Little bit of self promo here with our visualization, but also whether it's open source AI, whether it's the tech giants coming with some new feature, open data, very interesting. Let's
Okay.
see.
I feel quite some posts from my side for next year will be tracing back to this database. So for you who are in the who are listening, I mean, you can explore this database. It's I mean, when did you publish it? I think last week or 2 weeks ago.
Very recent, 2-3 weeks, yeah, and update should be every week. So
yeah, so you can access this. I think it's just AI World, so written together .eu, like the European Union. So aiworld.eu, and you can explore the database. So I'm not sure. Is there more that you want to show us, or should we kind of like speak a little bit more? Like it's really up to you.
yeah, no, let me show a bit more. This was just the landing page, which of course is the billboard. But then at least what I'm going to show now is really the ambition that for every country we make a profile. So you can go, I don't know, maybe you like to go to Germany, then we can fact check it immediately. We feature like the top stats. So how do I do in the ranking? What are the KPIs? The hubs we double checked. What are key players in the ecosystem, and always nice to get people from their own country telling us what is wrong, who is actually. We learn a lot from that. This one should already have been fact checked.
Let's see. I'm trying to spot something that I might see, but this is probably also kind of like a good disclaimer. So I mean, this you said this database is kind of like work in progress, and it's not perfect. It's an MVP. So everyone that's here, kind of like listening to it and seeing this, like if you spot mistakes, please reach out to Robert. And he said like, so what would help him now at the beginning to improve this tools is like, try to test it, give it some user tests, see if something is not working or is not right, and give the feedback to Robert so they can improve it on the on the spot, basically.
Absolutely. Another thing you see here is how is Germany developing over time. So here you can really take the time you want, and then see. This is simply the patents Germany filed that we classified as AI for now. You can see what is a percentage of German patents during those time that was AI, and you see big rise here in the 17 to 2020. The global share, how does it compare to the rest of the world? And of course, not only for patents, but for all the different. So even ideally, when you want to understand really what is the state of your country, you can go to your country's page. You tell me if it's wrong. If not, you can pick and choose. And of course, the goal of data science is not to cook the data and find the 1 year you like and say, we're doing so good, it's 5%. But luckily, you can always go back to the website and fact check that as well.
Yeah.
I'll just keep going quickly. For countries, you see who is filing the patents. We see Siemens, Bosch here, and a good comment I got the other day is, okay, and what are they filing? Because it's probably a different AI than a Helsing is making. That is something we want to look at. It's much more difficult, but definitely worth it to even picture that.
I mean, this sounds like like a lot of my students also come to me and see like kind of like, hey, where can I kind of like go with my career afterwards? Which are good spots to go? I mean, this kind of like can give you an answer. Like go there to the organizations that are, for instance, most prolific at filing patents and so on. Right. So this is and also research, kind of like what are the universities? That's so cool to see. And my university is actually on top.
It's the data that speaks. It's that simple. It's that simple. And one that is difficult, the links. So Germany works a lot with the US, what we see here, for patents, for research. I don't expect it to be very different. The US will always be very good. Like in the website, they score well on almost all KPIs. A last thing, and then I'll shut up about the countries. What we really try to build more is see where is a country good at. So here, if we look at US raised, USD raised, so the amount of money, and then we go to the revealed competitive advantage, then we look how does Germany do in these sectors compared to other countries. So in terms of the global, and it's interesting when you see, okay, paper products, I didn't expect that. You see a few electronics, aerospace, security. Germany is much more competitive than if you go to, okay, automobile.
I think it's interesting. I think I saw it's forestry, right? So forestry there seems to be quite good. And I remember we had one. So I used to build up one of the largest startup incubators for AI in Europe. So if someone from Campus Founders is there, shout out to them. And I think we had one startup or one or two at least applying from Germany that were kind of like doing AI in for forestry. So these were super interesting use cases. So here there seems to be something popping up there.
Very good. As data nerd, I have to say these numbers do not make too much sense for me. So I'll verify that. But I assume that the relative things are, and in forestry, I worked for a charity. What they did is they put mobile phones and later small devices in trees to capture like illegal logging sounds or the sounds of birds and everything, using machine learning to kind of take that. And that was also super interesting. So I definitely see that there's more to that. Yeah, the work in Germany, you can also see it compared to others, more recommender systems, but I keep lecturing, so I don't want to. Last thing is the amount of regulations from OECD could be more updated. We see the AI Act here, but it's a lot of initiatives they took. So I assume there's much more out there that we haven't mapped here yet. But at least it's a start to see, okay, this is how Germany is doing, and I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic about Germany, about EU much more than others. But that's a policy question to dive into.
Yeah. So there's one question. So let's try out your tool on the spot. So I always say that Munich is probably one of the best places in Europe or even the world to do artificial intelligence. What would your tool would your tool support this? Can I compare, for instance, Munich with other places?
Soon, yes. Soon you'll have 1,800 urban areas, of which Munich is definitely one. We're still building some backend there. So I've seen preliminary versions that you don't see yet. So now if you do this, you see Germany, but Munich not yet.
I think I saw it when you put it kind of like on the big map at the beginning. There was kind of like you had kind of like an AI hub Munich, and they had like something like.
Very fair. Yes, that's a very good one. Like if we should be.
But you see, for the people who are watching this, I mean, there's still so much room that you can do, and you can bother. You now have to contact a Robert, and you can contact him and say if there's a feature that you like, and probably also others would like. I'm happy. I think Robert might be happy to look into it.
For sure, definitely. And exactly what you said, like here, Munich, in terms of patents, it's much bigger than other cities around the neighborhood. Maybe Paris is closest. And this is just very 1D, showing the absolute amount. But it gets even more interesting when you start mapping Munich to others. What we did for Germany, we can also do it for the Munich-based researchers, and then see with whom did they file this patent, if so.
Okay. Yeah, I'm so excited about this tool. I think it's a really cool thing. It reminds me. So if someone would ask me, I mean, I did a lot of research or a lot of work with our world in data. So at one point, I was helping my former prof to write a book, and a lot of kind of like the analysis we did for kind of like getting world data was kind of like world in data, and it seems very much that this is now maybe doing the job when it comes to the world of AI. Being kind of like able to tell those stories and to give us more insights into those things.
Thanks. That's exactly what we try. Like our role in data is a very good example that spans very broadly, has very high quality, and really teaches you something in every page they have. And that is our goal as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So what I would be curious is kind of like with you to reflect a little bit more kind of like on the process that you have been on creating this. So what are your top learnings? And also maybe before we start kind of like this, so for the people who are watching, later on we're gonna ask the questions. So if you have questions, please feel free to post them in the comments, and we can kind of like discuss your questions, and Robert can try to answer them. This is always super nice. But I would love to know from you, like, while you have been working on the project, like, what did you learn, and what kind of like, were there some insights you had that you kind of left you in awe, or something that surprised you?
Very good question. One that data is hard in the sense the amount of double checks and how you almost become, well, paranoia is the wrong word, but at least very dedicated to get to the nitty gritty. Surprised me, like how over time it got so important, because you, in your mind, it's like, oh, I need this data, I go fetch this data set, I do some exploratory data analysis, I see patterns, I check for duplicates, for outdated things, and then you clean it and you're ready. Never the case, like, or at least it's very common. You need to dig deeper and make double checks. But that is also when you're that deep in the data that you really start seeing things. And while you do that, one thing we saw is, okay, you see this picture emerging. Oh, the EU is more competitive than we expected, or at least the data we have shows, hey, US is very advanced, but we always say that China is that much further. But then if we look at both connections, but also absolute values, and the research side, that Europe is interesting. But then you change scope, and for instance, you start looking at open source models, which you've been doing the past weeks, and then you see that the top performing model is like the Quen model from Alibaba Cloud, and it's both in terms of small models, but also in decent size. It's much more than we've seen in Europe so far. Then your picture of, okay, this is how these global players are doing, it can shift with the week. And that is tricky because you don't want to say one thing the one week, one thing the other. But following the data and with the current updates, it does change all the time. So that is what is interesting. Like if you're saying, Europe is so behind because 2 months ago I saw stat X, or you went to Chatbot Arena, or wherever you went for your information, I would say you need to double check. My supervisor, he gives a good example. He changes his machine learning slides for his course every single week, because every week things start keep changing. And you don't want to say outdated stuff from last month, because by that time O1 launched, Gemini 2 and 3 launched, and everything is different, for instance.
Yeah, yeah, it's super interesting. So maybe maybe we can talk a little bit more about what you just said. This is the current discussion. I mean, I just came from Silicon Valley, and there they believe that we in Europe, we are lagging more and more behind, and the AI Act is lagging more and more, or is actually not really helping in us advancing. So what would you say? Like if you kind of like, if you compare how do you think we are standing in Europe compared to other places, and what do you see?
I get what you say, and based on the data, it's also obvious that in San Francisco so much is happening, and there seems to be cross contamination that we maybe lack a bit. That is the one part which is super hard, that we sort of missed a boat in terms of compute, in terms of turning research into products. We always say we're strong on like the deep research that our institutions, our universities do well. That is one part that is hard to ignore. However, thinking about solutions and changing it, there's also other stories that can appear. One is the AI Act, where there's really this narrative. Okay, it stops you, it stops innovation. That is definitely not the intention. The intention is it also benefits it, one, with regulatory certainty, two, with actually stimulus for industry also in Europe. And I myself am also critical of this, in the sense, is that really happening? Is the ambition big enough? Because what we nowadays see is you need a lot of chips, you need a lot of millions or billions to actually go big. One narrative that grows out of that is, okay, maybe we shouldn't build the foundation models that are being done now, but we go work on the applications. Europe has a strong background in robotics. It's clearly that since LLMs are strong, that robotics has gotten a boost, and with this language instructions, robot arms, but also more complex systems become better and better. And maybe we take that, make it our edge. On the other hand, what you see is, if we take autonomous vehicles, I don't know if you rode one last year, but I hear people in San Francisco, they just take it. It's a normal thing. And that was maybe the first time that I realized, like, okay, now we're missing out. It's not Apple or Meta leaving one model like on the table for the US, but not for Europe. I think we have a lot, like language models are commoditizing, or the multi-model ones, because they do much more than just language nowadays. But
Yeah.
I haven't seen a self-driving car here yet. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you at least, when I was there, you can completely feel the difference. I mean, every billboard in San Francisco is AI. It's actually insane, and I think like there was no conversation I had that was not around AI, and actually it's not even AI. Everyone in Silicon Valley is now talking about agents and wanting to build agents, and kind of like this being the future. So yeah, but I'm like I'm from Europe, and or actually from Munich and Germany. I'm always trying to think about how can I support the ecosystem that we have, given kind of like the conditions that we have imposed on ourselves with things like the AI Act. And what I find very interesting is, I mean, and you see this in the numbers, is when it comes to research, we're actually very, very good in Europe. Like you have seen kind of like the numbers and publishing and stuff. Like we don't have to hide ourselves. I think the main challenge that we have is going from research into not only building startups. This is one point where we may be lacking behind. But I also see one of the main challenges is not only kind of like in the startups, but how can we bring this technology into our economy, so into existing organizations? Because for me, this is somehow the missing puzzle piece, because we're talking right now about this big AI bubble in the market that we see, kind of like all the startups are super inflated. Every startup claiming now to do artificial intelligence at some point, and you don't know if it's a marketing gag or if it's the real deal. So there's a huge supply of AI solutions. What is missing at the moment is the demand in order to kind of like create kind of like the sustainable value chain where you have enough demand to meet the supply that we have at the moment. And I think one of kind of like the big things we need to focus on, as we are very good in research, is thinking about how we can empower the economy, not only the new economy that's not there yet. So speaking about new startups that are created, but how can existing organizations profit from artificial intelligence? So how do you see this, and how can the AI world tool or map help me with this?
I very much agree, and that is where both innovation and regulation come together. Like you want trustworthy AI that solves problems for people. The famous meme that we want it to do our dishes and what is it? Do our homework, and then we can go paint and make poems. But it's actually that, like, I believe I see that the way we develop AI is also the way it starts to solve problems. So if we focus on the important applications and have it like you're saying, have the demand rise. And I think it was Ethan Mollick saying, even if we stop producing new AI today, like we have 10 years or no, he said 5 years, that we can still implement what is left. And I saw someone else saying, developers are saying they have 20 projects in their backlog that they would like to do, but they don't have time. That is a clear indicator of the ideas are surpassing a good threshold of what we can do. Reminds me of another publication, like a good idea is getting harder to find, where maybe with AI we can say, well, AI is not making the ideas, but it's empowering people to have the ideas again. And here there's so much to win, because I think even I see it with myself, like I prompt maybe the language models 30, 40 times a day now, which I think is much above average. It has to be, because with coding that I do, it saves hours every single day. But I could do even more, like have more of a conversation, get information quicker from it. And then I studied machine learning. So imagine the people that haven't had this kind of background. I mean, they're as much entitled as me to go talk to the chatbots. But I think that there's a lot to win. And that is just people. One thing we see in the research is that companies are reporting they use AI. I think the number in Europe is around 30%, maybe less. And then people working in these companies, they actually report it much more. So we see it's a bottom-up approach where people start doing it. But the approach that I think you also mention is, if as a company you really take this, or as an organization, and do it across all lines, I think jobs can get more pleasant if we design it well. We do better solutions. We can really elevate society with this, but it's hard because there's challenges. We have the hallucinations. We have what is the input data, and I know we as a community, engineers, society are trying to make that better, but it is not perfect. So the famous concept human in the loop always keeps coming back, because taking that out can cause problems. But if we manage to find this equilibrium, this optimum, we're just at the start. That is what I would say.
Yeah, super interesting. So I'm curious. So I mean, this thing is I see it as a tool that has to kind of like to visualize the things. How is this informing kind of like the work that you are doing at CEPS, and how would you like to see others using kind of like this tool?
Very good, very good. I think the best example is you have intuitions, and then you check them with Google, or nowadays with a chatbot. But with this tool, you can really get to a, well, I hope, higher quality source where the information is curated. So when you want to learn about, let's take AI agents as an example. Again, there's YouTube tutorials, there's websites, but the idea is with us that you can first read, okay, this is it. You have a curated video or infographic or both to really get you to grasp it. And ideally, then you start asking yourself the questions, but how are AI agents implemented in my city, in my country, and how is it done worldwide? And then if we can show that as well, which is really a few steps ahead, because if you ask now, how is Singapore using AI agents, how is US doing it, how is the Netherlands doing it, it's hard to give a good answer. And maybe for this technology, we're just at the start. But the goal is that you can find this information quickly. And if not, like, of course, we cannot summarize the world, then not. I would love to implement a bit of an AI feature where it does the search for you, that if you talk or if you search in the search bar AI agent in Singapore, that it can give you an accurate answer. Is it there or not? Maybe we need to look at RAG applications for that, or even the next step of RAG that is evolving.
Yeah.
That is what I would say. Like for now, we are, well, encyclopedia is maybe the best word. We want to be even more an educator. For us at CEPS, we're thinking about the CEPS Academy. So basically, really using this as a tool to teach and really give seminars and things to show this is what we're finding in the data. This is what we think you should learn from it. For others, we have projects where people want to know, oh, in my country, how is it doing? I mean, this is the example I keep giving. The value chain we've been looking at, so from chips or even before chips to models to applications to the end user. When we do projects on that, we can take examples from this, or there is synergies there. And it is just the start. The idea is it develops with what is needed. Like you're saying, people wanting to know where can they work. We're thinking about AI memes, like having that as a friendly introduction into the topic. On the other hand, when you do it all, you get diluted. That's also not the goal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we try to frame ourselves as a startup, be iterative. But for now, this is what it is, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, it seems so. So again, for the people, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments so we can ask the questions. If not, we're gonna just continue our conversation. I mean, I think we can go for hours, but we have more or less 10 minutes left. So it seems you're doing quite some interesting stuff at the CEPS when it comes to AI. What so what else are you doing when it comes to AI at CEPS? And then maybe we can also talk later about opportunities, because I know also a lot of my students, or maybe a lot of people out there, are actively looking where they can get more involved. And it seems that the CEPS might be a good place to find a career when you want to work in the field of AI and really leave an impact.
Very, very interesting. We have a much larger team working on tech, I would say, and AI is a big part of that, of course, which really ranges from projects in human AI interaction, AI in journalism, and how it can create or detect misinformation, digital democracy, and the tech unit and us data science. We work together. Usually where we map data, we feed it, they give the policy implications, for instance. And what I personally do myself more is I think there's a few interesting things to mention. One was a project with the UN for Ukraine to kind of map, this was the intersection of AI with other industries. Where can Ukraine be competitive and good at AI, to rebuild, to become a part of the European single market, to really benefit? So then you would see, hey, in aerospace, for instance, or in agriculture, we see Ukraine doing more and more, and then looking at the patents, the investments, the publications, but also digging deeper. Okay, what is currently happening? What is Palantir doing there? Deep view, amongst others. Another one was looking at investments for the AI office to see what is China doing, what is the US doing, what is Europe doing, and really mapping a bit of what I showed now. What are the players? What can we expect in the coming years? What are the trends? What is interesting about CEPS, we work very project-based. So we get funding per project, and in that way, no one has to tell us, like, or we can agree on what we research, but then we have the freedom to be independent and find the truth and not what a funder wants. But so it really depends on which projects we take on. We cluster it around topics I just mentioned, and for us that's really data science. But there's definitely there's been more demand for, let's say, data science based policy towards also AI than I expected. Like I thought, AI people can code, so this is kind of covered. But we see all the time, because it's a hard exercise, because the data can be dirty. There is demand, so we're also usually looking for people.
Yeah. So yeah, it seems like a cool place. And I know you, because you told me before, you also have been working on a different project, kind of like on open source and closed sourced with Hugging Face, I think. Do you want to share a little bit about this?
Absolutely, absolutely. For the past, what is it, 3 weeks, basically an advent calendar for December, we got into contact to talk about, hey, can we see what is happening in open source AI? And of course, Hugging Face, the GitHub of open source, where everyone puts their machine learning models, their data sets. They have a good database, a good picture of what is going on. And they have more than 1 million models on their website, for instance. So we started doing that, basically looking at their API. Where are the companies or people from that put models on the platform, the data sets, which data sets feed into which models. We connected to NeurIPS for the NeurIPS week, so where do researchers come from for that, and basically every day publish a visualization to give a bit more insight in what is happening in open source. And it's interesting to dive that deep. We had licenses the other day to see, there's a big part of open source that makes it permissive, for instance, or others where it's more or less difficult. But we're seeing AI tailored licenses, which is important. When you take a model that can you commercialize it? How much do you need to keep sharing about the source code, and to what extent are you really free to do whatever you want with it, repackage it? And I think it shows again how, no, I don't want to say how little we know, but how much there is to learn, in the sense, I gave the example of Quen that started popping up. I think Black Forest Labs is a very good example. It's one, a lot of people don't know it, but out of nowhere, there was this German, I think I can call them startup, that started making better images than DALL-E, than the other image generators, and it became the standard that anyone who did a GPT prompt the other day to make a picture, it came from Black Forest, because not only it is super good, it also is open source. So you can fetch the model and provide it to others or to yourself. And those kind of insights are fascinating. Same with DeepL, that there are still these hidden gems, which is sometimes hard for people to distinguish them from it. It's easy to remember the big players. Although even when I talk to non-technical audiences, usually when you mention 10 AI companies, most people don't know all of them, which is fair, because there is many, they're changing quickly. But it's this kind of race that is going on, where we're seeing, okay, who is building good enough things, like Stability AI. They were first making the pictures. Now it's Black Forest. I heard what Google is producing is very good. I need to dig into that. So let's see the next year. In 1 year from now, I find it super hard to predict with whom you'll be making your pictures or videos or whatever interactive, which also finally comes into place.
Yeah. I mean, very interesting. So, I mean, it seems like you're working on a lot of cool stuff, and also kind of like the insights you're generating are super valuable. Can you tell maybe a little bit more about kind of like, because you're working, so for whom do you do research? So who are you partners and so on? I mean, I think for AI World it's Google, and how does this partnership work?
Yes, so that is the Google Foundation had a project to fund different projects. For us, it was the ecosystem of excellence, and with them there was an agreement on what we were doing, and we were left quite free to do it. Another thing that CEPS usually does is tenders or horizon projects. With tenders, it's an agreement with the European Commission, so you really directly consult them on something, and then it's much stricter. This is what they expect by this, etc. Horizon is a different beast where it's really EU research. So you group consortia together of universities, of consultancies, of think tanks, of civil society that together do a proposal for a multi-year, sometimes multi-million project, which could, for instance, be the human AI interaction, where, for instance, a group at CEPS is looking how can surgeons use AI, how can credit lenders use it, how can it be used with pregnant women to support. And then what we usually do is look at the policy implications or the research, whereas sometimes other partners build the product. Now with AI World, we start to build things ourselves as well, more and more. And so those partners, it's a big mix. NGOs, other think tanks in town or in other countries. It's really kind of looking per project with whom is there a fit, complementary skills, for instance, and can
Yeah.
you have an effective, yeah. So it really differs.
Yeah, very cool. So now that we're coming more or less to an end, I would love to hear kind of like what now looking that you have done all this work, like what would you hope for Europe, and what would you kind of like think that we in Europe have to do to not lose out, or kind of like still be kind of dominant in the game?
I like that question. I like it. And it's being asked in Brussels every day, but it's very hard to give a good answer. For me, it starts, I would say, mindset. Like, I almost feel where we're starting this, or we have this narrative where we're not competitive enough, we need to invest more. Um, which both I see, but the mindset is really, we can one cherish what we have, because it is not bad. We're a very spoiled continent in that sense. We have very good welfare, and the question is, do we have what it takes if we really want to be competitive? Do we want to work more hours? Choose big winners, like have a different, basically become less European, because we want to be competitive the European way. And I think we are competitive on other KPIs, but if we want to have our own large AI company, that takes sacrifice and something else. Talent is a thing that is discussed a lot. They say, okay, wages are lower in Europe, but then the argument is that there's both Europeans and non-Europeans that are happy with less wage to be here because it is a good life here. So if that is not fully the problem, then what is it? So it always feels we're kind of circling around the same argument, and it's a bit, one, be proud and happy what we have, and two, stop talking, start doing. And that is, in a policy environment, hard, because it's very good. Yeah, this is
You're
uh,
speaking from my heart. This is what I see all the time. And like when you ask me what is still wrong in Europe, or it's AI has become a political topic, and a lot of people talk about AI. Not so many people that are talking about AI have this AI know-how to really be there on front, kind of like educating other people on AI or driving policies. That is what I'm seeing. And it's not enough doing. I believe we need much more doing. So this really kind of like speaks out of my heart. So sorry for interrupting there.
very good. It reminds me, in the EU, we always talk about hiring in AI, which is a high risk situation, which it fully is. But then you go to a conference like Unleash, where it's about AI and HR, and you see all these startups building AI applications for hiring, because it's a challenge companies have. You see this mismatch of some building the future, others talking how can we do it in a good, trustworthy way. And if we in Brussels, we're trying to bring those worlds together and come to an agreement, but that is hard. But having this more practical approach and then learning by doing, I think that really could benefit, and we don't have to be negative. We were in a good spot. There's a lot of potential for everyone to have their share in AI. Let's have it. That is what I would say.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, this is super good closing words when we're talking about kind of like understanding the AI landscape or ecosystem. I mean, it's very open, and I think we just have started, and the more people that kind of like are part of it, the more likely we're gonna solve our challenges. So with this, thank you so much, Robert. For those who are still there, kind of like listening, thank you so much for listening. If you like what we're doing, just kind of like follow us. Connect with Robert, test out the tool. If you have any feedback or spot any mistakes, let him know. And then we have another event tomorrow morning. If you're not there, I wish you a nice festive season and a good rest of the year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.